Everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 12th. This is our regular City Commission meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to ask our City Clerk, Vanessa Castillo, for a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Mercer? Here. Commissioner Yates?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong?
Here.
And Mayor Dantzler.
Here. Invocation tonight will be led by Dr. Joe Lemons from Lake Ship Baptist Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vanessa Castillo, our City Clerk. Please stand if able.
Let us pray. Most gracious God in heaven, maker of heaven and earth, to the one of whom the psalmist writes, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, to the true authority upon this earth and those who are in positions of authority derive their positions from you. Lord, we turn to you now, recognizing, Lord, that we need you and we need your guidance so that we can make wise decisions, and Lord, so that we can be prosperous and fruitful in this world. Lord, I ask that your presence would be on these proceedings tonight. Lord, I pray for these men and these women who sit in positions of authority right now. I pray for their safety. I pray a blessing upon them and their families for their willingness to serve. And Lord, recognizing that you have said that those who sit in position of authority will be held to a higher standard, Lord, I pray for your guidance upon their lives, upon their minds. Lord, I pray that you would lead them to make decisions that are wise and righteous, Lord, that protect the rights and the freedoms of the many, Lord, that we may live a peaceful and prosperous life. Lord, as decisions will be made tonight about many different things, I pray for peace, I pray for wisdom, I pray for unity around righteousness. And Lord, I pray in all things that we would seek to bring glory and honor to you, because you alone are Creator and Savior. You are a good God, and we thank you. Be with us tonight. In the name of your Son, who died on the cross for our sins, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two presentations tonight. One is a proclamation for Constitution Week, which will be Andy Brannon. Our second one will be a proclamation for Bond Clinic, who is celebrating their 75th year of service. Commissioners, if you guys could join me down front, I'll let City Manager T. Michael Stavers read these proclamations for us. So, Andy, if you're here, if you come forward, come to the microphone, please.
Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, members of the audience, our proclamation reads as follows. Whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, Bradley T. Dantzler, Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd of 2023 as Constitution Week in the City of Winter Haven, Florida, and asks our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787. In witness whereof, I've hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 12th day of September 2023. Signed, Bradley T. Dantzler, Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk.
Thank you. The Ponce de Leon chapter of the Florida Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution is proud to accept this Constitution Week proclamation from the City of Winter Haven in observance of the 236th anniversary of the signing of the U.S. Constitution. The annual celebration was established when signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956. Since then, the DAR has been promoting Constitution Week in our local communities by obtaining Constitution Week proclamations for mayors, placing displays in public places, distributing Constitution booklets to students, participating in Bells Across America, and more. Mayor Dantzler, Commissioners, thank you for joining us in the celebration of America's most important document, the U.S. Constitution.
All right, so we're gonna do it once here. All right, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. One more. Awesome. Thank you. Very much.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, members of the audience, our second proclamation this evening reads as follows. Whereas Bond Clinic is a local multi-specialty healthcare group currently celebrating its 75th anniversary, and whereas Bond Clinic, founded in 1948 by Dr. Benjamin Bond, Dr. Rita Marotti, Dr. T.C. Karamides, and Dr. William T. Steele in downtown Winter Haven, and whereas Bond Clinic established as the first medical clinic in Winter Haven, Florida, and whereas Bond Clinic is committed to their patients to provide quality health care, increase access, reduce costs, and serve their community. And whereas Bond Clinic has been instrumental to the foundation of the medical care, services, and testing now available in Winter Haven. And whereas Bond Clinic is dedicated in bringing quality physicians to our local market, reducing the need to travel for care. And whereas Bond Clinic has grown steadily to meet the needs of an expanding community to encompass 100 medical providers across 28 specialties. And whereas Bond Clinic became one of the largest companies in Winter Haven with 6 locations in the city, providing employment to more than 500 team members. And whereas Bond Clinic invests in local relationships and organizations to help make our community stronger. Now therefore, Bradley T. Dantzler, Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby proclaim September 2023 as Bond Clinic Month in the City of Winter Haven, Florida, and applauds the organization for their continued practice of giving back to the community. The company is consistently found taking part in major and educational events around Polk County and has made it a priority to continue this tradition today. We wish them continued success in our community. In witness whereof, he is hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 12th day of September 2023. Signed, Bradley T. Dantzler, Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk. Dr. Ikavides, congratulations.
Thank you. We are honored to be here today. 75 years of healthcare that the Bond Clinic has provided, not by just their providers, but also the entire team. As we look forward for the next 75 years, and we plan with our community leaders and our community, we promise that we'll continue our effort to continue providing the high quality, the access to our doctors and to the healthcare services we have in a very affordable cost. We wouldn't be able to accomplish all this without the support of the City of Winter Haven and our community. And we have not been able to accomplish anything that has happened until today without our local and community partners. We look forward working with all of you and our community for the next 75 years to even make this community even brighter than before. Thank you all.
Thank you. Congratulations.
They were just talking about those doctors at Bond Clinic, and Dr. Rita Marati was my pediatrician, and I was scared of her as I was a bear, because every time I went in there, I had to get a shot. She gave me all my inoculations and all my everything. I did not like her, but she was a sweet lady. Okay, developments of note, we have none. Commissioners, you have in front of you the minutes from the August 8th, 2023 utility budget workshop and the August 14th regular city commission meetings.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
move approval of both sets of minutes.
thank you. We have a motion to approve both sets of minutes from August 8th and August 14th. I'll close the city commission meeting, open the city commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public want to speak to the minutes, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. We have a mayor's statement at this time. I read this statement every year. State law requires the first substantive issue to be discussed at this hearing are the percentage increase in the millage over the rollback rate and the reason ad valorem revenues are increasing. The city of Winter Haven current proposed millage rate is 6.59, which is 9.71% higher than the rollback rate of 6.0066 mills. The ad valorem proceeds resulting from the difference between the proposed millage rate and the rollback rate will be used to offset increased operating costs and a fund capital project. Okay. John, is there anything else we need to do after reading the mayor's statement, or do we go on to ordinance first reading, or what do we need to do?
Yes, sir, we'll go into first reading of item 9A on the agenda.
T, you don't have anything you want to add at this point? Okay, so we'll go to ordinance first reading. This is public hearing on ad valorem tax millage rate. This is O-2353, adopting the millage rate for fiscal year 23-24. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if you will indulge me, I'll read the entire ordinance as we normally do for each budget year, if that's all
I will
right.
indulge you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance number O-23-53, an ordinance adopting a millage rate to provide sufficient funds for projected expenditures of the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, and providing an effective date. Whereas on September 12th, 2023, the city of Winter Haven held a public hearing as required by Florida Statute 200.065, and whereas the city of Winter Haven strives to provide a level of service consistent with the expressed desires and demands of its citizens, and whereas it is necessary that taxpayers of Winter Haven also be willing to share the common expenses of said services and to provide funds therefore. Now therefore be it enacted by the people of the city of Winter Haven, Florida as follows. Section 1, the millage levy for fiscal year 2023-2024 is hereby set at a rate of 6.5900 mils. Section 2, property taxes are increased 9.71% over the rollback rate of 6.0066 mils. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on October 1, 2023. Introduced on first reading this 12th day of September, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, as noted, Florida statutes require that each taxing authority to annually set a millage rate for property taxation following required public hearings. The Commission set the proposed rate of 6.59 mils at your July 19th, 2023 meeting. The property appraiser used that information to prepare the trim notices which were distributed in August. As part of the annual budget process, each September, the City Commission establishes the ad valorem millage rate for the ensuing fiscal year. The millage rate must be established by ordinance and have a public hearing at each of the 2 readings of the ordinance. The ordinance is read in its entirety at each public hearing. The first public hearing is this evening. The second will be scheduled for September 25th, 2023. Again, the new fiscal year commences October 1st, 2023. The 6.59 mils ad valorem rate will generate $25,059,424 towards the city's general fund at a collection rate of 96.50%. Bring up that slide for me, AJ. I just wanted to reiterate to you, this is a slide that I shared with you during the budget workshop on July 19th that showcases where the city of Winter Haven falls within respect to the other municipalities as well as the county. We do not have an affirmed rate at the time we prepared this for Lakeland, for Haines City, or for Highlands Park. However, based upon the information that has been provided to date, Winter Haven stands to be the 9th lowest ad valorem millage rate in the county, to include Polk County. And you can see those that are in gold or yellow, as ever may appear on your screen, are the ones that are remaining unchanged. Those that are in red are millage rates around the county that are set to increase, and those that are in the greenish blue color are those that are set to go down this year. With that, I will stand for any questions. However, staff recommends the City Commission approve Ordinance O23-53. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioners, any questions or comments on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of O2353.
This is the first reading. We still need to vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
For this one.
Okay. All right, I'll close the City Commission meeting and open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to any item on the budget, please do so at this time. See none, I will close the public hearing, reopen City Commission meeting. Oh, B.G. Garrett, you had down budget? Oh, 9B.
What was B?
Is Mr. Garrett here?
I am.
Would you like to speak on this or 9B?
It was 9B. What is 9B?
Budget.
What's that?
9B is adopting the budget. Not right now, we're adopting the millage rate, but 9B is when we're actually adopting the budget. So if you'd like to speak to that, you can. We're just adopting the millage rate on this particular vote.
Okay.
And you could speak on the budget on the next one.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak to the millage rate, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, reopen City Commission meeting. Commissioners, questions and comments on this motion? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion passes. 9B on your agenda is ordinance O2354. This is adopting the budget for the fiscal year 23-24. City Attorney, would you read it in its entirety, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will do. Ordinance number O-23-54, an ordinance making appropriations of funds for defraying the expenses of the municipal government of the city of Winter Haven for fiscal year 2023, 2024, accepting the budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023 as the official budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, fiscal year 2023, 2024, and providing an effective date. Whereas Florida statutes require each taxing authority to annually adopt tentative and final budgets, and whereas estimates have been made by the city manager of the city of Winter Haven as presented in the budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023, showing that the sum of $260,308,996 will be required for defraying the expenses of maintaining the government of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, for the fiscal year 2023-2024. And whereas the budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023 anticipates sufficient revenues to fund projected expenditures of $260,308,996. Now therefore be it enacted by the people of the city of Winter Haven, Florida as follows. Section 1, the sum of $260,308,996 is hereby appropriated out of all of the various revenues accruing to the city of Winter Haven and set aside for the purpose of paying the expenses of and maintaining the government of the city of Winter Haven for fiscal year 2023-2024. Section 2, the budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023, on file in the office of the city clerk, is hereby adopted by reference as the official budget of the city of Winter Haven, Florida, for fiscal year 2023-2024. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect October 1, 2023, introduced on first reading this 12th day of September 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Well, Mayor and Commissioners, as the city attorney has discussed this evening, Florida statutes requires each taxing authority to annually adopt tentative and final budgets. The law also requires local government hold a public hearing prior to the adoption of each of those budgets. The trim notice that was sent out to all property owners in August notified the city of Winter Haven property owners of the proposed millage rate, as we just approved on first reading, and a date of the first public hearing on the millage. The city will advertise the adoption of the final budget and the notice of the tax increase prior to the second public hearing in accordance with state law. The second and final hearing will be held again on September 25th. Tentative budget has been prepared based upon commission directives authorized at the budget workshop held on July 19th, 2023. Those directives include the adoption of the current millage rate of 6.59 mils. The budget has been prepared in compliance with city's policies and requirements and appropriate state statutes. At this point, I'd like to offer presentation on the budget. It's been since July 19th, since we shared the information with you. And for the benefit of those that are in the audience this evening that may not have been here, I think this is important information for them as our tax-paying citizens and business owners. Start off, again, I just want to reiterate that we have moved towards really focusing in on what our strategic foundations are for the city of Winter Haven. With the assistance of graduates of City U Class 1, members of our community partners and some of the nonprofits we work with, as well as leadership within the various departments. In January of this year, we sat down and looked at the various services, facilities, programs, initiatives that the city is involved in, and collectively identified 6 foundational pillars that every one of those will fall into. Maybe they fall into one, they may fall into multiple. But these are the guiding pillars of where our money is actually spent year over year. Items such as quality of life, community safety, infrastructure, responsible government, environmental stewardship, and economic sustainability. And for the benefit of the audience, every single service that we provide, from garbage collection to water delivery to police and fire services to athletic facilities, fits within one or more of these pillars. That being said, we had directed our department directors to, as they prepared their budgets, look at what the inputs and outputs were within their operations and assign those accordingly where they could be measured and metrics could be created associated with performance, assign those back to specific pillars as well. So at the end of the year, we'll have statistical data that we can compare against what the pillars are to show what we're doing in those 6 areas. We are also engaging in a community survey at present time. It's not just enough to understand what your data tells you internally. It also is very important to understand what your customers are saying externally. So our Zen City, which is a consulting firm that we work with, is doing a validated standard survey for us that is truly representative of the greater community, and we'll gather that information and feed that back to us. Collectively, those 2 buckets of data, customer input, metrics from internally, will be used to create a scorecard and a dashboard, which will be displayed upon our website going forward. That helps further establish transparency, accountability, and that regular updated data will help support effective decision-making going forward. I expect that that data to be available on our website probably about the time our new website goes live, which we think will be after the first of the year, if not sooner. We will also use that data to help with our strategic planning session for next year. So as we make financial decisions and work towards building the 24-25 budget year, we'll have a lot more data-rich environment within which to work. Some of the budget highlights. Again, our budget for fiscal year '24, $260,308,996. It is a balanced budget based upon the current millage of 6.59 mils. Property values in Winter Haven have increased 15.2% to $4.26 billion in value. That is up $3.7 billion, up from $3.7 billion in the prior year. Ad valorem revenues increased by almost $3.2 million for a total ad valorem revenue of $25,059,424. There's also revenue increases within our 2 CRA districts. Our budget includes a $250,000 committed allocation or appropriation to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It includes funding of the 2.5 step program, step for employees as part of our STEP plan program. It incorporates a 2% cost of living adjustment for our employees across the board. However, I must mention, we are still in negotiations with the Federation of Public Employees as well as the IAFF, which represents our firefighters. You do have an item on your agenda this evening that speaks to an agreement that we have reached with our police union. So those, we've included dollars in the budget based upon, we have to have something in there so we're not coming back and trying to make up large volumes of money based upon what that negotiation lands on.
Pete, can I stop you for a minute?
Yes, sir.
On that point, we are going to be having second reading and second votes on 925. Does this have to be settled by 925 or we can't?
No, sir, those can go forward. In fact, in years past, we've had a number of the collective bargaining agreements that went beyond 925, went beyond 10-1, and were settled after the fact, and we account for that within the budget. We make adjustments and amendments where we need to cover those costs, and implement the adjustments at the time of ratification of the contract. The budget does include a total of 692 positions, that's full-time and part-time. Of those, there are 13 new full-time positions and 2 new part-time positions. Within the general fund, that which is supported by the property taxes, there are 3.5 new positions, and I will explain those. We've already talked about the millage rate, so I don't need to advance on that. In June of this year, we presented to you our recommendations on community partner funding. This included funding for Polk Vision, Main Street Winter Haven, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Development Council. That is all included within the budget. Service delivery partners, these are 3 agencies that work directly in concert with our departments to provide services. Those include Keep Winter Haven Clean and Beautiful, our Marching Wolverines Community Band, and the Ridge Art Association. And then just in August of this year, you had a presentation from the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District speaking to the bus services provided through the Winter Haven Area Transit. You've also recently had a presentation from Heart for Winter Haven, which is our homeless initiative. That is funded again this year at $220,000. Our not-for-profit funding, on June 12th, you heard a recommendation and adopted that recommendation or approved it from the Grant and Aid Application Review Committee. They funded 33 agencies this year, or recommended that the commission fund 33 agencies for a total of $305,000. So that goes out to support nonprofit organizations within our community, and you can see those are listed there, and they are outlined within the budget as well. When we look across all funds, so this is not just general fund, but our proprietary funds and our special funds, the total revenues total $228,038,003. You may be asking yourself, well, that is significantly less than what the actual budget is. The reason for that is that we have revenues that carry forward from the current year. There are projects and expenses in the current fiscal year that don't always get done in that year, so you advance them into the next year. As an expense, you also advance the revenues associated with them. So capital projects are usually a good indication of that. There's certain equipment that we order, garbage trucks as an example, we expect to receive this year, but the industry tells us it may take a little bit longer. So that's where that difference shows up. Likewise, in the total expenditures of all funds, the total expenditures represent $299,134,051. Again, why is that greater than the $260 million budget? Because this number reflects any inter-fund transfers that occur. So you have inter-fund transfers where money is moved from one fund to another and then expended there, so it almost gets counted twice. When you back that out and you right-size and balance everything out, it comes down to the $260 million that I had referenced earlier. Within looking at all the expenditures of all funds, you can see that capital makes up the greatest portion of that at 46.86%, followed by personnel services and operating. Again, I need to reiterate, this is all funds. When you look at general fund in just a moment, you'll see that those numbers are very different. When we have all funds, we're including the utility operations, which there's a tremendous amount of capital within utilities, and that's why that gets skewed. Within the general fund, your revenues that come in, you can see again, as we discussed, the ad valorem tax generates about $25 million of the $65 million that it takes to operate the general fund. So at the end of the day, it's about, what, 38% of that budget comes out of ad valorems. Other portions come from transfer and contributions. We have state shared revenues in terms of sales tax. We have gas tax, we have parks and recreation user fees, county shared revenues, permits and licenses, grants, number of different sources that make up the balance of what's not funded through ad valorem taxes. The expenditures within the general fund, and this was where I was talking about, you can see here now personnel becomes a much greater portion of that budget. It represents 45, almost 46% of the general fund. Operating services about 16%, non-operating about 8%, support of other funds, 16.3%. The reason you don't see as much capital in the general fund, capital projects that are associated with the general fund are typically moved into construction funds or transportation funds. Major roadway projects, major building rehabilitations, or new construction are housed within the construction funds. The capital that you see here, this is typically associated with the replacement of vehicles. That could be fire trucks, police cruisers, vehicles associated with the streets operation and the like. Again, just some further detail within the general fund that you have seen prior. The general fund does provide support to some other funds to include the library, the airport, the cemetery. There is a transfer into the transportation fund. There is money that is transferred from the fund balance of the general fund into the 2015 construction fund. This is to offset expenses associated with the renovation of the Rowdy Gaines Pool filtration system, to cover a portion of the Lake Elbert Trail system, and the replacement of the HVAC system within the Florida Citrus Building, otherwise known as Normale Hall. You also see the transfer of $250,000 going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Expenditures by department. Outside of non-departmental expenses, which again, this is transfers to other departments, internal service transfers, grant and aid, insurance, the bus service. I will just point out on insurance, city government is not any more immune to the challenges of the state of Florida than you are as a resident or a vehicle owner. City insurance will increase by just shy of 50% this year on our property and liability insurance. That is a direct result of what we're seeing within our state. When we look at the other departments and what they make up, the police department and the fire department combined consume 40% of the general fund. Their operating budget, personnel capital as related, totals $28 million plus for those two departments alone. Go back to what I said about the ad valorem, it covers $25 million. The property taxes at the millage rate we have, which is sufficient because we're able to balance this budget, but I think it's important to note that that does not cover the cost of the police and the fire department alone, let alone what it takes to maintain public spaces, green spaces, the roadways, and the like. That's why we're so dependent upon user fees, upon grants, upon partnerships that we can do with other agencies to offset those expenses. Our self-insurance fund, as you know, the city of Winter Haven is self-insured. Our plan costs for 2023 are expected to be $7.1 million. This is starting to right-size and true up. If you look back to 2021, almost $8.5 million went out. That is the peak of our COVID expenses. So with COVID behind us for the most part, to everyone's comfort and medical health, we're seeing a much more balanced plan cost within our self-insurance fund. Our pension plans, there are 3 pension plans the city operates, one for the general employees, one for police, one for fire. General employee pension plan on the plan funded ratio is showing at 81.3%. This is the chart in the upper right-hand corner. The firefighter pension plan has a plan funded ratio of 85.8%, and the police pension at 88%. One thing I will point out, and it's reflective on all of these charts, if you look in the very lower right-hand corner, you'll see in this case a number that says 2.7%. That is the actual investment return in comparison to what is above it, which was the assumption. All of our investments in fiscal year 2022, way down. That's just part of the economy. You guys and gals understand that. I have been informed that our performance numbers through this part of fiscal year 23 are significantly higher than what that was. So this is kind of a blip of an anomaly within there, but we feel confident with those pension plans going forward. In terms of employment, you may recall that in 2020, Florida voters adopted a minimum wage adjustment that would take us to a $15 an hour minimum wage by year 2026. The date that we need to look at within this particular table is going to be September 30th of 2024, because by that date, the city of Winter Haven would have to have a minimum wage of no less than $13 an hour. While the state says that, the market drives a much different bargain, and you have to be competitive within the marketplace. Our minimum wage, as of October 1st of 2023, pending favorable approval by the commission of our cost of living adjustment, which applies 1% to our base minimums, and the 2.25% step, which applies to the base minimums, would put us at $14.55 per hour at the lowest rate that we have. A lot of that is going to apply to entry-level positions and part-time positions. I mentioned the STEP plan. We are in year 2024, so this is the year we go to a 2.5% step for our employees. We were at 3% for the first 2 years, and that was to align us with the state's minimum wage. You can see on the right hand, the minimums will adjust by 2.25%. This occurs on the employee's anniversary date, and it is dependent upon a favorable annual evaluation for that employee. This is not an automatic. Employees that are not performing do not merit a step increase. When we look at cost of living, I mentioned that the budget includes, for almost all of our employees, a 2% cost of living. When we look at what we've done over the past 2 years, in fiscal year 23, we did a graduated cost of living. Our frontline employees, we adjusted by 8%, our mid-level by 5%, and our administrative and top-level management by 2%. This year, we are adjusting by 2% across the board. That still falls in all categories just below what the CPI was for that same 2-year period. However, with our STEP program in place, it's my recommendation that 2% is where we should land with that. In the police department, we'll talk about this further this evening when we get to their item within the agenda, but we have reached a tentative agreement with them that is slightly different from what is reflected here. This is from the first budget presentation. In the fire department, we are still at the negotiation table with them. I hope to be able to bring something to you soon so we can get that laid out and in place by October 1st. We have a handful of new positions that we're adding. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to point out a few of them. Probably the most predominant within this is the Deputy Chief of Police. As I've mentioned time and time again, the Chief of Police, David Brannon, will retire around this time next year, and we want to bring someone in ahead of that retirement for succession planning. We are in the recruitment and interview process for this right now, and hopefully can provide some insights in the coming weeks on that. We are also adding a key position within our Human Resources Department of a Benefits and Risk Management Manager. This is a position that I'm confident will ultimately pay for itself through the savings we can realize in constantly monitoring and evaluating what our insurance, both on property and liability, as well as on the healthcare side, where we can find savings within that. In utilities, we have 4 positions that we're adding, but I'm going to say that the most important within this is our utility construction inspector. Every time you have a new development that comes before you and you hear us about releasing a bond because the infrastructure is in place, that means somebody from our utility department and our engineering departments as well have gone out and inspected all that infrastructure that's gone in. And you know how fast that's happening in Winter Haven, so hence the need for that additional utility construction inspector. Also looking to do more with water conservation, our pretreatment and fog coordinator. Fog, for those of you that aren't familiar, is fats, oils, and greases, something we want to keep out of our sewer system. And then also a billing assistant clerk that will help with some of our customer service challenges on the utility side. We're also adding, and this is a position that I'm very excited about, a litter control coordinator within solid waste. This is the first year we'll have this position, and this is intended to be someone that will work with the various nonprofits and school groups and homeowners associations around town to do adopt-a-road programs and litter initiatives to help keep more of this trash out of our lake system.
T, just real quick, is our animal control all done by the county? We have nobody in the city?
Animal control, sir?
Yeah,
Yes,
like-
that is entirely handled by the county. Now, I will say, we work closely with them as need be, and when we're dealing a lot with waterfowl and some of the more aquatic type animal control issues, our natural resources team will get involved in that, and they'll work with whether it's the Audubon Society or other groups here in town. But if it's cats, dogs, things of that nature, you know, a loose bear running around, that's going to fall to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
In terms of reclassified positions. The one that I'm going to point out most heavily here is the Public Safety Director. As I shared during our budget workshop, it is my belief that when you have a position that is overseeing multiple departments, that is not equitable to consider that position a department director in all rights when you're supervising what basically comprises 40% of the general fund. That is equivalent to an assistant city manager, and I have recommended the change in title for Mr. Byrd from Public Safety Director to Assistant City Manager for Public Safety, which will include safe neighborhoods, police, fire, and all emergency management. The other positions are pretty much standard adjustments that you would expect to see in an annual budget. The Administrative Services Manager that is in there, I'm sad to say that we're having a send-off for Cindy Stripling this Friday. She has been an absolute treasure to work with for us, managing our FEMA and LAP agreements. A lot of grant compliance in there, so that title is being retitled to a LAP Coordinator. That's a very key position for us. There's also an adjustment within the Finance Department of the Accounting Manager based upon the inclusion of performance metrics in our budgeting process. Other positions are standard market adjustments, or as you see within our summer camp, seasonal staff to give us more time for training prior to that season beginning each year. We have a couple positions at the airport that are being adjusted in pay grade based upon the technical responsibilities of those positions. Our librarians are market adjustments, and then similar adjustments within the building division as well. General fund, you can see personnel, operating, and capital, how those adjust this year, proposed over current year that we're in. The personnel adjustment is about $2.7 million. That has to do with STEP programs, the 3 positions we add, the cost of living adjustments. The operating increases by about $1 million, and capital by about $588,000. General fund balance. This is an exciting thing to talk about. We have for a long time had the threshold, the minimum threshold of 17%. Commission has maintained that, and in the winter months of this year, late winter, early spring, we brought to you some policy amendments and changes from finance, and one of those was to set a target, not a threshold, but a target goal of 30%. Doing so helped us achieve an improved credit rating when we were evaluated this spring. So we went from an AA minus to an AA, so that's a significant advancement for us. You are going to end fiscal year 24 with a fund balance of 31%. Anything that is above the 30%, as we discussed, would be brought back to the commission with a recommendation to move that into the construction funds to offset contingencies and cost escalations associated with capital. Some of the major projects within the general fund, Fire Station 1, just point out that Fire Station 1 opened in May of 2010. So we're coming up on 14 years old this year. That is a 24/7 operation with a whole lot going on there. So it's due for some R&R and some little maintenance there. Within Parks and Grounds, we've got a couple trails that are heavily used that will be milled, resurfaced, do some different asphalt treatments on there. Some playground replacements and vehicle replacements. Senior Center will get some interior painting. Tennis courts, some court resurfacing, including the pickleball courts. Improvements at the Women's Club, some bleacher covers out at Sertoma Park, excited to see that. And then within planning, we need to redo our transportation element. We're going to do a study of First Street North. That is part of how we get that complete street done through there in partnership with DOT, a strategic annexation plan, and we've set aside funds for various FDOT grant application support. So as applications become available, a lot of times we're leaning on the outside world to help us compile those. Within the Streets Fund, number of projects there, but just a couple of them. Electric charging stations, our downtown charging stations are doing great. We consume about $300 a month off of all of those combined, which is a relatively small investment when you think about it. It's our intent to keep those as a non-charged operation until they have had a full year in service so that we can better associate decision-making with what the trend line is there and have some good data for that. So probably as we prepare the 24-25 budget, we'll bring you back a fee schedule that will include what should we be charging for electrical vehicle charging. Where we will place these that are budgeted here, Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center, Fire Station 4, other facilities that are slated to come online, and we'll also look to what our EV master plan for charging stations laid down a few years back and begin to infill some of those spaces. We have an ADA transition plan budgeted. This is part of the requirements for a lot of our federal and state dollars that we have that transition plan in place. The Lake Ship roadway design at $150,000. When we traveled to Washington, D.C., and we pitched the Lake Ship renovation project, Commissioner Yates and Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong helped advocate for that with Representative Franklin. That is in the federal budget at this point, and it's making its way through. It's not a done deal as of yet, but there is support for that, and this is to get that project underway with some design work. And then the vehicles, we talked the other night about the asphalt truck and a handful of other vehicles. That's what's included within the streets operation. Within the airport, you can see our airport operations will go up to from about $5.2 million in expenditures to about $10.5 million. A lot of that has to do with grants. A lot of grant activity. In fact, you have a number of projects on your agenda this evening that deal with the South Apron rehab and a few other items as well. But a lot of things happening at our airport. I will tell you that when you look at these projects, the South Apron rehabilitation, the Digital Tower project, and the Commerce Park, the total investment on all three of those projects is $6.5 million. The city's portion of that is just shy of 12 cents on the dollar. That's a pretty sweet deal when you can get it. I'm going to put in my 12 cents, and you're going to put in 88 cents, and we're going to make these projects happen. So we're grateful to the FDOT and FAA for their investments that we have. Library will be 20 years old this year. Mayor Dantzler, it's hard to believe that on July 5th of 2004, we sat in the outside the Friends of the Library and dedicated that building. So it is due for some improvements as well. There's been a lot happening there, but their operations remain very steady. It's just the dynamics of how libraries operate is probably what's changing the most there. Cemetery operations, we are in the process of expanding Rolling Hills Cemetery right now, so we've got more plotted spaces out there for sale and interments. Within the airport, a couple other projects, creation of an emergency plan, an FBO operations plan. We'll do that with one of our consulting firms. There's also a new monument site for the south side of the airport where the old terminal used to be. And then at the library, again, 20-year-old facility, has about 360,000 unique visitors every year. So time to replace some carpet in those workrooms in the multipurpose area and do some additional interior painting. The construction funds, I mentioned, this is where a lot of our capital goes into for the general fund. So projects there, Lake Mod Park Phase 2, if you've driven out 7th Street or come in that way, it's under construction right now. The silt fence is up and the earth is being turned there. Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center improvements, I can't wait to bring to you somewhat of a page turn presentation that staff got to go through last week so we can show you what that building will be looking like, and we will present that to the community, and I think we're going to have just an outstanding product when it's said and done. Chain of Lakes Park Phase 2, this is a joint project with the TDC and Board of County Commissioners. Again, 50 cents on the dollar for our investment there. Great partnership. Thank you to Mayor Dantzler for advocating on our behalf with the TDC. Lake Elbert Trail, this is the trail portion of that project at $3.6 million. There will be money also within the utility fund and the stormwater fund to offset those utility enhancements. Construction and purchase of a building facility. This is the utilization of $6 million of building division revenues, fund balance, to renovate what was once Fire Station 1 to create a more one-stop shop and expanded operation for the building division, given the amount of work that is coming through those offices. Rowdy Gaines Olympic Pool renovations. This is the filtration system. I mentioned the Nora Mayo Hall, Florida Citrus Building HVAC renovations. We also have further investment, continued investment in the improvement at Lake Conine Nature Park for the recreation elements. The $4.34 million that you see for fire stations 4 and 5, that is for stations 4 construction and the initial design of 5. And then it should actually be Lake Silver Revetment. This is money that Sam Killebrew, Representative Killebrew, helped get into the budget for us at the state level to improve the western shore of Lake Silver, where the wave motion between storms and just activity on the lake has caused some erosion there. So the state is helping us with that, and we expect to see a grant coming from the FWC to cover that in the coming weeks. Transportation Fund, the biggest projects in here, Pollard Road, CSX Extension. We have about $9 million that's coming to us from the state of Florida through DEO as well as the DOT. That is money that the governor came here personally to present us a check back in 2001. This is our portion of that project. So we are still moving that forward, and we will be doing some debt for this project to account for what ends up being about 40 to 45% of the cost is on our shoulders for that. The other thing that I'd just note within this TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, this is our resurfacing, whether that's mill and resurface or microsurface or whatever, new strategy our Public Works team chooses to employ on what is most appropriate for those roads. We continue to fund that at $2 million. So about almost a $20 million investment in roadway projects in our budget for next year. CRAs, you heard from at your meeting on August 28th, so I'm not going to belabor that. But the commission, for the audience's benefit, the commission, along with 2 community members, comprise the CRA board, and they heard their budget presentation on August 28th and unanimously recommended that that come forward to be included in the city's overall budget. I will say that within the CRA, some projects that are critical or priorities within there, the Sidewalk Cafe and Joyce B. Davis Park construction. Those are ongoing right now. Joyce Davis Park is anticipated to be complete later this month. The Downtown Sidewalk Cafe is expected to be completed before Thanksgiving. So very exciting to see both of those coming to fruition. That Sidewalk Cafe expansion is if there's a desire to pursue additional sidewalk cafes within the downtown district, and that would help pay for the design of that. The other one that's within there, I mean, you've heard all these projects, but the Bowen Yard improvements, that's the FDOT pond at the south end of 5th Street where it meets US Highway 17, large pond there. That is to create that as more of an activated green space, somewhat of a downtown park. You have a grant resolution on your agenda this evening specific to a $200,000 beautification grant for that project. In the Florence Villa CRA, there is some traffic calming that will take place on around the Lake Maud Park, which includes Avenue O and 7th Street. There's a focus on property acquisition as well as residential infill and new construction. Both CRAs saw an increase in revenues this year. Willowbrook, the beginning cash balance for fiscal year '24 of $2.46 million. That is reflective of the money that we received from Duke Energy, is the offset for their need of land for the Osprey transmission lines. So that is being programmed into improvements out there. That process is moving forward. The RFP for that has closed for design build services. We've received 3 bids or 3 proposals for that, and the Professional Services Committee meeting is being scheduled to do the final rating and evaluation on those, which we will bring back then to the commission for approval. We are dividing those projects up over the course of 2 years at Willowbrook. That's greens replacement, on-course restroom replacement, new cart paths, things that to try and get them done in a full calendar year while you're operating a golf course is not realistic. So we've spread that out over 2 years. In the proprietary funds, solid waste, not a whole lot to talk about in solid waste other than we are expanding constantly. Eric Labby has shared with me about 6.6 new residents moving to Winter Haven every day last year. So that's more homes, more trash, more garbage collection, and we are trying to stay ahead of that. Within stormwater, our big investments here are the South Lake Howard Nature Park expansion project, which you just had some discussions on some land acquisition for that at your last commission meeting. That project is funded in part by a grant from the Heartland Headwaters Act, as well as a grant from the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program grant. So again, less than 50 cents on the dollar going into that from the city's perspective to make that project happen. And there's the as I mentioned, the South Lake Howard. That doesn't reflect the 200,000 from FERDAP. Some significant items within the proprietary funds, operational facility improvements out in solid waste, again, just as they're expanding, wash racks and, office space needing to be able to accommodate that operation. Vehicles, that includes a previously ordered residential side loader truck, a new container delivery truck, as well as some assets to accompany our litter control program. And then stormwater, I mentioned there's funding within utilities and stormwater for the Lake Elbert Trail. I'm very happy to see this, over $1 million going into stormwater improvements around Lake Elbert. There's really no stormwater treatment around that lake at present time. It is, in comparison to our other lakes and lake health, it would be at the lower end of the scale. So this will be a significant improvement to water quality there. We continue to have $1 million set aside for capital projects. Here again, you can see $2 million going from that $3.8 million in revenue. $2 million of that is going into the Transportation Improvement Program, that is our resurfacing. $300,000 towards the Rowdy Gaines Olympic Pool Project, and $1 million towards our Chain of Lakes Park Phase 2 project. And the years 25 through 28 are forecasted, however, that is subject to change based upon commission directive going forward. Talk quickly about water. You just heard a proposal from Gary Hubbard. I'm not going to go through everything that he shared with you, but I think some important points. When we look at what our water and wastewater rates reflect for a single family consuming 5,000 gallons per month, you can see that we are second to lowest on this scale. At 55, 56 compared to where, say, the Polk County is at 91.70. So our water and sewer rates remain extremely attractive to people. We are going to look at these going forward as we start dealing with the PRWC and what our water rates are going to be for alternative water source water, as well as what our connection fees are going to be. And that's, for lack of a better word, impact fees. We don't call them that, but when new homes are built, what is the impact back into the infrastructure and capital assets of the Water and Sewer Fund? We expect that those will also be going up. However, we will do a rate study for both of those this coming fiscal year. In fact, I think we are awaiting a task order proposal from Raftellus on the connection fees as we speak. In the utility fund, their revenues, you can see debt proceeds account for about 26, almost 27%. Their water service fees at 19.7%. Their reserves, they are using some reserves to fund capital projects, which is why that's there. And then also sewer service fees comprise about 15.5%. Water and sewer connection fees, that's what I was just talking about, those impact fees, we'll use as a revenue source about $5.4 million of that this year. Their expenditures, most of it's in capital, as we had discussed. Almost 50% of that budget, of the almost $87 million budget, goes out in the form of capital. Big assets within the utility system. Water plants, lift stations, lines in the ground, things that we don't always see, but they're there and they are not the cheapest to replace. Although once they are replaced, the expectation is you'll get, a new wastewater recycling facility needs to be lasting at least 50 years, if not longer. That's what we're getting out of the facilities that we have today. So when you spread those costs out, it becomes much more palatable. Then the utility fund, their revenues for this year totaling $87 million roughly. You can see the expenditures mirror that. Their cash balance at the end of the year, ending cash balance will be just shy of $23 million. Expenditures by division, the wastewater collection system. So this is our wastewater lift stations, master lift stations, pipes in the ground. It's the largest chunk of it at just shy of 20%. Engineering, let me clarify that. A lot of what you see within engineering is the studies and initial work before a project lands within one of those water or wastewater arenas. Water supply comprises just shy of 15% of the investment. Wastewater treatment, which is the two plants, about 14.5%. Big projects within the utility fund. South Lake Howard sewer replacement. This is ongoing right now, getting ready to start putting shovels in the ground at $2 million. The gate valve installation, that is the replacement of gate valves or installation of gate valves along our reuse system, most predominantly out State Road 544, to let us to be able to better isolate when there's breaks and issues within that system. Sewer slip lining, repairs to the groundwater storage tank at Inwood, some clarifier and air basin rehabs, lift station rehabs, vehicles, pretty much standard stuff we would see year over year. But that's South Lake Howard sewer replacement. That's dealing with old clay pipe that is subject to failure and collapse and a lot of I&I, hence the need to move that one forward. Their capital investment program, again, you can see just how that breaks out in the different areas. I'm not going to elaborate on that this evening. You've heard this before. Their 5-year plan for capital investments, this is broken out by the different areas. So wastewater treatment plants, they'll spend about $8 million this year. The Pollard Road Water Treatment Facility, the Cypress Wood Water Treatment Plant improvements, those are the two biggest pieces within that. But you will also see a number of interconnects. Eagle Lake Interconnect, Dundee Interconnect, Haines City Interconnect. In further out years, a Lake Alfred Interconnect, an Auburndale Interconnect. These are part of our efforts to be able to wheel water as part of our engagement with the Polk Regional Water Cooperative. In the wastewater treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant number 2 to upgrade design and construction, that's not this year, it's a few years out, but that ties back to our efforts to take that line out of service and make that a master lift station and have a single wastewater treatment plant. Within the engineering cost center, the $1 million set aside for new admin and maintenance facility building, that is the initial work to create a permanent, long-term, sustainable home for our water department that allows them to, as they grow in size, to not have to add temporary buildings onto an existing parcel where they are. It'll also allow us to free up the existing parcel, which is the old Hill Nissan car dealership, as you may recall, and make that available for other purposes such as affordable housing or multifamily residential close to downtown. In the water distribution, the Lake Elbert Drive water main is the big chunk within this one. Again, Lake Elbert Trail, we live and die by dig once. So if we're going to go in and we're going to put in a new trail system around that lake, let's look at the stormwater, let's look at the wastewater, let's look at fiber, and let's look at water. So this is what that pertains back to. Let's get it all done, create the least amount of disruption to our residents, and give them a quality product at the end of the day. In wastewater collection, the Harmony Master Lift Station is the biggest investment there. Septic to sewer improvements, I believe that's in our section 6A, which is up around Lake Hartridge, where Havendale and 17 meet. Lift station replacements, number of standard projects that we've talked about in the past. And then in reclaimed water, this is our reuse system. The Lake Ashton County Road 653 Phase 2 helps us push more waste or more reuse water out towards Lake Ashton. That can offset the use of potable water and other sources for golf course irrigation and benefit us ultimately at the end of the day. When you look at 5 years for capital within the utility system, again, these are big, big, big projects. I can't reiterate it enough. Wastewater Treatment Plant 3, our future wastewater recycling facility, is expected to be around $152 million. That's a lot of money to spend out over 5 years. We have a WIFIA application for federal loan assistance that will be submitted in November, and that will allow us to pay off the debt associated with that project over 30 years plus. That is how that project should be funded, so that the residents of Tenay are not footing that bill entirely on their own. That is, the people that are coming into the area are helping carry some of that debt service there. Ultimately, about $274 million in utility infrastructure. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I think Winter Haven is in an exceptional position. I don't think that what we're seeing as far as replacement and rehabilitation of our systems is because of a lack of maintenance in any way. These are 50-year-old systems, folks. When you start putting sewer water, wastewater into concrete tanks for 50 years ongoing, things start to break down. They start to deteriorate. It's the natural progression of that. I think that we are in a good position because we have a plan for how to fund this going forward and a prioritization of what projects need to happen. I think that every other municipality that has had systems in the ground for 50-plus years is on the brink of experiencing the exact same thing. They may not be there just yet, but it's forthcoming. And I think, Commissioner Mercer, you've worked in the water sewer industry as long as anybody, and I think that you would agree with my sentiments there that it's going to happen in every single system, that you're going to have to go in and replace these major systems. Our water treatment plants, we mentioned the Cypress Wood Water Treatment Plant 2 and the Pollard Road Wastewater Treatment Plant. Those are what are shown in red here. When those come online, that will allow us to take 4 of our existing water treatment plants offline. That saves us in terms of some of our operational costs. It creates some economies of scale and some efficiencies. We will also be doing some significant rehabilitation on a couple of our other plants at Fairfax and at Inwood. I mentioned that water recycling facility. For the benefit of the audience, our intent is to build a new wastewater recycling facility on Pollard Road adjacent to wastewater treatment plant 3 that is capable of handling the existing permitted capacity of plant 3 as well as the permitted capacity of plant 2. Then also add into that the anticipated additional annual average daily flow that we forecast associated with new growth. Collectively, those 2 plants today, permitted capacity is at 9.2 MGD. The other thing that we have within our budget for this year is acquisition of land. We've talked about the Bradco Farms property and the city's intent to try and acquire 370 acres of land off of Dundee Road. This is going to result in the creation of a nature park and we always say it's like a small Circle B is what we would expect to see out there. Natural lands, trails, but it will also be an area where we can do aquifer storage and recharge with our reuse water and rehydrate the system from which we are pulling water from, which ultimately benefits our community in terms of available water supply. This is the first link, or the first gem, we'll say, in our efforts to create the Sapphire Necklace. And then finally, within utilities, we have an ongoing effort to replace asbestos cement pipe that is part of our infrastructure that's buried in the ground. We are also working to replace up to 81 miles of vitrified clay pipe, or VCP pipe. This is old-time pipe. This isn't what you're going to be installing today. This is systems, again, 50, 60, 70-year-old pipes that are in the ground, if not longer. Clay breaks down, and you have to replace it. It's very susceptible to root intrusion. It leads to a lot of I&I, of infiltration that comes into the system and brings other things into our wastewater. So we are working every year to replace that. The project we are doing on Lake Howard Drive right now is a good example of that. We are replacing old clay pipe within that. I think I shared with you replacement of pipe the other night. Actually, it's on your agenda for this evening out in Cypress Wood. Similar situations that you've got to go in and replace that over time. In conclusion, just a quick recap. Fiscal year 2024 budget as prepared stands at $26,308,996. Includes 13 additional full-time positions and 2 additional part-time positions amongst all funds combined. It includes a 2% COLA adjustment for the vast majority of our employees and other adjustments for our police and fire, subject to negotiation with those unions, and as I said, also in negotiation with the Federation of Public Employees. Sets aside almost $20 million for transportation projects, and sets aside just over $59 million for construction projects. I want to point out, quick point on the transportation. A lot of the transportation projects we see happening around Winter Haven are not necessarily City of Winter Haven projects. So there's a lot more investment happening here through DOT, which you see along US 17 and Cypress Gardens Boulevard, Polk County, which you see out on Thompson Nursery Road. So when you factor those in, we're probably closer to, well, Thompson Nursery alone, well in excess of $100 million investment by the county to improve transportation out there. In closing, I just want to say thank you. These folks, CJ and Alan, have been breaking pencils and probably destroying calculators and spreadsheets since January working on this. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not on the phone with them asking a question or looking at something within the budget and asking for some justification and clarification, and they have never once failed to give me exactly what I was looking for in that regard. They sacrificed their holidays, their weekends, and many late nights to be here doing this, and I'm eternally grateful for the work they did. Our department directors prepared for you budgets that are sound, that are realistic, that are conservative in nature, and that focus on making investments for the community and for our taxpayers. This is not frivolous spending. These are investments that benefit us for many, many years to come and will continue to keep Winter Haven the ideal place that people want to come live, they want to come work, they want to come play, they want to be a part of this. So on behalf of my entire team, I just want to say thank you, Gary Hubbard and his team, on preparing the utilities budget. And Mayor and Commissioners, I will happily stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, well, there it is, Commissioners. Key, congratulations on your first budget. as city
Hasn't
manager-
passed yet, sir.
As city manager. CJ, good job on your first budget. So you guys did a good job, and I think it's a good budget. Commissioners, any questions or comments on the budget?
I'll comment.
Go ahead.
Why not? CJ, how was your first budget with Winter Haven? Best one you ever had? Awesome. I echo city manager's response, and thank you to your team for putting this together. I would also agree that I think that this is a very lean, fiscally responsible budget. I think when you look at the property values increase of 15%, most would say, well, why don't you lower the millage rate some? And that, I think, is a common knee-jerk reaction. When you look at the cost of salaries and the cost of things that we need to purchase and utilize on a daily basis, you're looking at increases anywhere from 20 to 50%. And that has there's no sight of that even slowing down in the slightest in the near term. So I think, again, Winter Haven's going to continue to grow, but we're going to do it lean and we're going to do it fiscally responsible. And thank you to T and every member of staff that worked on this budget. You guys, I think, did a great job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I think that's the same. I think it's a great budget. The utilities budget is one of the ones that's the most costly and will always be. As you said, when you get infrastructure that old, it has to be replaced, and it's not cheap. And it's not even close, and that's going up at a very high rate, all of it. So, yes, I think everybody did a great job. And it is nice to have a little bit so that we can put it in the construction fund to offset some of these extra costs that we're always having in those departments and in those projects, so.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to say that, staff, you did a great job. T, you and your team, I mean, it's really an outstanding job. And when we look at it holistically and the amount of revenue that we're dealing with, but also looking into the future, being on that water cooperative really gives me an insight to let me know that the rate that you just presented, what we're paying for water, goodness gracious, that is not going to be able to be sustained. And so it's going to be really, really, really in the future, and we're preparing for it. So, great job, great looking ahead. And that's what we have to do. And the one thing that I'm also really pleased that you all have in there is the basically with what we have established with the general fund, keeping a level with, in fact, it's been so, the level that it has been at for over 10 years, and to now to raise it to a higher level and be able to do that, and really not to have to raise taxes this time. So,
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment? And I appreciate that insight, Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong. One of the things I didn't say this evening that I did share with you in July, we take a very conservative approach because there's so much that is outside of our control. I mean, there's the economy in general. Just heard the news tonight that there's likely to be a labor strike within the auto industry. Well, that has a direct effect on vehicles for us as well. Those things we can kind of navigate around. What we have the biggest challenge with is what happens at the state legislature. So you know, for the past 2 years, state legislature has taken aim on proprietary fund transfers into the general fund. And this year, it did not pass, didn't pass the year prior, but if that were to ever come forward, there's about $4.5+ million that comes into the general fund from our proprietary fund that we would not be able to count on. And so having that reserve balance and having a conservative approach to this, of not just saying, hey, all the money that's coming in, we're good to spend it, we know that we need to hold that aside in some cases. We can't expect to have an interest banner year like we had in fiscal year '23. And again, I just think that's conservative approach, and CJ and her team recognized that and helped us craft a budget that accounted for that possibility. And I would just say that as us as commissioners, you as commissioners, and us as the administration and our constituents as well, be mindful of those impacts and those decisions that are made in Tallahassee that can have a direct negative impact on what we're trying to do here locally. There's, home rule is extremely important, and we need to make sure that our local folks get to make the decisions on those things, not somebody that's has no interest in Winter Haven whatsoever. And I'm not saying that about our local delegation. Our local delegation has been phenomenal to us, but it takes a whole lot of people to move that needle up there, as you know.
Well, last thing I was going to say is, for those that are casual observers, this is not something we just started tonight. These meetings in this budget, we started in June, to having these discussions and talking in earnest about what the next year is going to look like. Our first official meeting, I think, is in July. So here we are in September, and we're finally getting to the point where we can pass something. And all you have to do is look at your TICO bill to know mine just got mine, and my goodness, that's inflation right there. And so when that goes up, everything has to go up. People's pay have to go up. Everything goes up. So we've got a good budget. We're going to be fine. This is going to be a good year. We're going to continue to get things done. And Charlie, are you going to be assistant manager or assistant to the city manager? What's your official title?
Assistant City Manager for Public Safety.
Nobody got my joke about Michael Scott?
I got it.
Assistant to the city manager?
He could be the assistant to the assistant.
There's no Office fans in here? They don't, never mind. Assistant manager, congrats. That's good. Happy for you. Okay, commission. In motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion to approve ordinance O-23-54, adopting the budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the budget. I'll close the city commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. We had Mr. Garrett signed up. This would be a good time for you to come forward. Give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Budget looks,
We just need your name and address, please, for the record.
name Robert Garrett,
Okay,
1440 Axel Circle.
thank you. Okay.
We appreciate the hard work you guys put into this budget. When we came in here, the first thing we did was we looked at the flag, we pledged our allegiance to it. So going back to 1868, the 14th Amendment talked about we're all equal. This budget don't seem to be equal. It just don't seem to be equal. if you look at those numbers for the CRA, we're at $3 million? Was that $3,213,000? Florence Villa receiving $974,000. Was it, am I reading that correctly?
So that,
So let me add on to that. How many of you guys have been to Mr. Dooney's place? It's an excellent restaurant. Excellent restaurant. We're not putting money in that area to build that up. So you guys can understand how great we as a people are. So I'm just curious to know about what allocations are going to that area, what allocations, what earmarks are for that area, because there's some good food over there. You should try it. Affordable housing, I'm still here, I'm back on that all over again. Affordable housing, just not affordable. Let's figure it out. We're smart people. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak about this item? Please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and reopen city commission meeting. Commissioners, final comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Budget passes. We'll take this up again in 2 weeks. We'll do this again on September 25th. We have to do this twice, so we'll do this again in 2 weeks. All right. Ordinance second reading, public hearing, item 11A on your agenda is 02340, request by Craig Ober to rezone 3 parcels from a PUD. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Mr. Mayor, did you want to do comments from the audience?
I did already. Well, is there any comments from the audience? Oh, we do have somebody. Okay, I thought I called for that. Sorry about that.
It's okay, you went really fast, I was like, wait, did I miss my chance?
No, you didn't miss your chance. Just give us your name and address for the record, please. You got
Thank you
5
so
minutes.
much. Melissa Altamirano, 200 Post Avenue Southwest, Winter Haven.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. I ran in here a little late, so I'm representing Water Tower Farmers Market, the newest indoor flea market here in Winter Haven, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of business who are coming in to Winter Haven. So I can appreciate the budget. I'm also a Haines City resident, so I can appreciate my city government. Thank you. I'm learning more about CRA. I'm looking into the resources. I'm learning about the different grants and opportunities that you offer. I welcome, of course, everyone in the audience to continue to research and understand how the government really does give us opportunities to help ourselves and to help our parts of the different areas in the community. But realizing the massive efforts that you put into that budget is very impressive, so I'm going to keep learning and researching. The only comment I wanted to discuss was that I continue and I want to stay active here in the city of Winter Haven. Today's just my introduction. I'm getting to know you. As a business, we're also getting to know you, but we also want to support new entrepreneurs that are sprouting out of Polk County, coming to Winter Haven. You talked about how you want to make this a destination to live, work, and play. Well, the work part is also hard. So for entrepreneurs, sometimes we run into a couple of issues. And of course, tonight's just my introduction, but I thank the city government for giving us the opportunity to give those comments to you so that we can express some of the challenges that we go through anytime we get into the planning and zoning and the building and the permitting, because we do run into a couple hiccups. So it's just my first time, but thank you again, city government, for working hard for our residents and for the businesses of Winter Haven.
Melissa, is your business open yet? I'm over here.
Opening September 15th,
Okay.
7
We were
a.m. to
curious
9
about that.
p.m.
Thank you.
Water Tower Farmers Market.
All right.
It's the old super skates. For,
No, I know. I can't wait for you to open. That's awesome. Wish you a lot of success, so, and I apologize for not calling on you. Is there anybody else? This is, all right. Anybody else like to address this body, please do so at this time. Okay, now I'll close the public hearing and comments from the audience and move on to ordinance second reading. 11A, City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance O-2340.
40. Yes. This request by Craig Ober.
Okay. Pardon me. For some reason, I don't have O-2340 here. Let me go ahead and pull that up off of the, pardon me. Ordinance number O-2340, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, by rezoning 3 parcels from Planned Unit Development, PUD zoning district, to single-family residential large lot, R1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1,000 Lake Otis Drive Southeast. The area covered by this request is plus or minus 2.81 acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, nothing has changed since first reading. However, just for the benefit of the audience, this petitioner is requesting to rezone 3 parcels from planned unit development zoning to single-family residential large lot R1 zoning. It comprises 2.81 acres located at 1,000 Lake Otis Drive Southeast. This was rezoned in 2014. Staff is based on their conclusions, the requested R1 zoning is consistent with the surrounding properties and the proposed use as a single-family resident. The requested R1 zoning reduces the maximum potential development intensity of the subject property from the adopted PUD. There will be a reduction in the potential demands to the supporting infrastructure. This was heard by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval. Staff recommends City Commission approve ordinance O-23-40 on second and final reading.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of ordinance O-2340, second reading, public hearing.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve O-2340. I'll close the City Commission meeting and open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Please give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. For the record, Shelton Rice. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Peterson and Myers, address 225 East Lemon Street, Lakeland, Florida. Today I'm here on behalf of Craig Ober, who is in the audience with us. He is the owner of the property. He acquired this property this year. His intent is to tear down the dilapidated carriage house that exists on the site today and to develop it with a single-family home, as opposed to the 6 single-family homes that are allowed under the existing PUD. It's a pretty straightforward request, something that has to be done in order for him to move forward. They're hoping to build a dream family home on the site, something very attractive. They've had a lot of conversations with their neighbors. They've been given support from their neighbors. So this is something to kind of clean things up, take it back to zoning that existed on the property prior to the ordinance being approved in 2014. Having said that, I'll stand for any questions you have.
Do you know if the intent is to keep that big tree, that big banyan tree?
Yes, sir. I knew you were going to go there, Mayor. I appreciate the comment. So yes, sir, the intent is, and Mr. Ober is here, and we talked about this a number of times.
Okay.
They've redesigned their construction plans a number of times to try to accommodate it and work around it, and that is the intent. They're going to try to retain that. They appreciate the historical significance of that, as well as Ms. Fuller and her philanthropic nature and the spirit of the banyan tree.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, commissioners? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve ordinance O-23-46 on second reading.
Thank you. Oh, we already did that. We already did
Wait,
that.
Yeah, we've
That
had a
was public
motion.
hearing. Sorry.
There's a
Well, you
motion.
called for it.
There's a
Close the public hearing. Anybody else in the public like to speak to this, please come forward now. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes.
It's because of that tree. I understand.
This is the first time I've ever seen Commissioner Yates' face turn red, so we know that.
I feel like a gator. I put 2 threes on the field at the same time.
So do we want to act on that motion that I made last meeting?
Yes,
That we
I
were
do.
going to call this off for this year only? All the bets and all that, so. Okay. 11B on your agenda is O2346. This is a request by Down Around the Dairy Down LLC. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-46, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 4 parcels and a portion of a parcel from commercial-heavy C4 zoning district to commercial-downtown C-1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location parcels are generally located along the western frontage of Fifth Street Southwest, south of Avenue C Southwest, and north of Avenue E Southwest. The area covered by this request is 1.47 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, the petition is requesting the city rezone 4 parcels and a portion of a parcel from commercial heavy C4 zoning to commercial downtown C1. So 1.47 acres in total, generally located along the western frontage of Fifth Street Southwest, south of Avenue C Southwest. Petitioner intends to redevelop this property with uses and development standards consistent with the C1 downtown zoning district. However, no specific uses or plans have been determined at this time. This is not in conflict in any way with Chapter 2023-304, which is, as you know, state law that holds us from making changes to zoning regulations and such. This one is coming from the petitioner. It's not an administrative request. Conclusion is that the request represents a natural expansion of the downtown core towards US Highway 17. Rezoning will allow the proposed redevelopment to be consistent with the development to the east as it relates to development standards. It does support land use concepts outlined in FDOT's US 17 corridor study, and the maximum development potential is unchanged. Therefore, there should be no increase in potential infrastructure demands beyond what is currently allowed. Planning Commission heard this August 1st and recommended approval. Staff is recommending City Commission approve ordinance O-23-46 on second and final hearing.
Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move for approval of O-2347 and public hearing.
46.
46.
O2346. Okay, we have a motion to approve O2346. I'll close the City Commission meeting. Open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen the City Commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. O2347, this is a request by William Wright Sparling Irrevocable Trust. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-47, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 1 parcel from single-family residential small lot R-2 zoning district to mixed-use MX zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1103 Fifth Street Southeast. The area covered by this request is 0.21 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, petitioner requests the city rezone a parcel from single-family residential small lot R2 zoning to mixed-use zoning district. This comprises a .21 acre lot. Request for this change is for the purpose of allowing the existing single-family home to be redeveloped into a mixed-use building with an approximate 832 square foot office on the first floor and a residential unit on the second floor. Again, this is a request from the petitioner, therefore it is not in conflict with Chapter 2023-304 as previously discussed. Staff's conclusion is that the requested MX zoning is consistent with the MX zoning assigned to properties located to the north and west, as well as the mixed-use development pattern of the surrounding area. The proposed use of the property as a mixed-use office residence is what is envisioned in the MX zoning district and is consistent with the primary mixed-use hub future land use designation. The proposed plans are projected to create a de minimis impact to public infrastructure. However, a final concurrency determination shall be made at the time the property receives site plan approval and it is developed. The Planning Commission heard this August 1st. 5 members of the public spoke with concerns about compatibility, additional pedestrian and vehicular traffic, and parking requirements for the proposed uses. Staff is recommending City Commission approve ordinance 23-42 on second and final reading.
Commissioners? Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Brian.
I just have a question. So, can we go back to the zone map? Maybe the other one? That one? So, in agenda review and the previous readings, I mean, I get the philosophy on why this one kind of becomes congruent with, I don't know if that's an alleyway between those, those other parcels there to the right or not, but to me, it's not, because you've got the parcel that is on Avenue K, so that is properly at MX. But this is a whole new parcel, and it jumps into the residential area of that area off of Avenue K. If those two parcels were congruent or merged together, then I could see the argument to make that parcel mixed use as well. But I don't completely agree with staff's opinion of going because, and using that alleyway, if you will, of defining the boundaries. Does that make sense? That's my concern. I don't know if staff wants to address that or.
And I believe that probably the appropriate thing to do in this quasi judicial hearing is for, if there's a motion to be made, then make it, and then listen to the public hearing and the comments that are made, and then you can have further questions or comments after you've heard all the evidence and heard all the points on behalf of this matter. But valid concerns.
So what you're saying, John, is we should
But you should entertain a motion.
entertain a motion and have discussion instead of discussion prior to?
Yes.
And that's because of this quasi judicial hearing we're having? Because normally we can have discussion prior to a vote, a motion.
I would suggest you entertain a motion, yes.
Okay. Anybody want to make the motion?
I would make the motion to deny the request of ordinance O-23-47.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the request of O 2347. I will close the city commission meeting now. I'll have a public hearing, and we'll hear comments on this motion to deny. Anybody from the audience like to come forward? Please come forward and give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Sarah Case, Next Level Planning and Permitting. I'm here today representing the Sparling Trust, and with me is Mr. David Sparling, representative of that trust. I have a little presentation for you, and I think I need the clicker. Thank you. Okay. Oh, here we go. Oh, you did? Okay. Do you want me to just- Okay. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so you've heard from staff, and staff is supporting this. And before you now is the actual land use map that shows the primary activity center, and that whole swath of color is that primary activity center. The dividing line of that is Fifth Street. So the parcel that we are bringing before you right now is within a primary activity center, and you'll notice that there's going to be neighborhood to the east and to the south of us. Subject parcel is outlined in the red circle. So here's an aerial. I just wanted to bring this to your attention because we are further encroaching into beyond that alleyway. The alleyway is unimproved, but it is platted right-of-way. I believe we're at 28 feet of encroaching beyond that alleyway. This is the zoning. So you can see that again, on the west side of Fifth Street, you've got the PAC, oh, I'm sorry, that's the land use, I'm sorry, and the mixed use corridor, which is north of us. And we're just asking for that one parcel adjacent to the hearing aid office that is there now on that corner. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. It looks kind of faded on my screen, but the lot north of us is 82 feet in depth, and our specific lot is 79 feet, which is a total of 161. The zoning that goes to that platted alleyway that is unimproved, that measurement is about 133 feet. So we're asking for an encroachment of only 28 feet. And I want to fall back on staff that they will reassure you all that this cannot continue. I know that was some of the concerns that were brought before the Planning Commission, is our neighbors were worried that if we come in and have a non-residential zoning, then who's to say the people south of us and keep on going down that corridor? I'm going to rely on staff to assure you that that is not going to happen, and you all would hear that in the future. The depth of the adjacent property, which is the medical complex, is 586 feet. So it is substantially deeper than we are trying to go. And again, the 28 feet is really de minimis to what is existing now. There, I believe staff said in their report with the Planning Commission, and if you all had an opportunity to review that report, that the impact for this use is de minimis, and that the improvements, the house is existing, was built in the early 70s, and any improvement, of course, would have to go through site plan, but it might be parking, but as it is right now, the required parking in the site could accommodate what is required. So from a aesthetic standpoint and in the neighborhood, it is not going to appear that all of a sudden it's this very intensive commercial use. The idea is to have some type of office, maybe an insurance office that can be run on the first floor, and have the property owner, the other Mr. Sparling, Bill Sparling, to live above that office and have some income. He's disabled, and it was a concept that we really thought was a good idea to bring before you all, and that's why we didn't do home occupational license, is so that someone could live on the second floor and have an office on the first floor. Again, just because of the colors, you can see the primary activity center and the traditional neighborhood.
You need a couple more seconds, or are you
I-
winding up here? If you're
Yeah,
winding
here
up,
we go.
that's fine. I'll
I'm
give you a
gonna
little more
wind it
time.
up. Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, I believe it was read into record this evening, but staff says that the requested zoning is consistent with the MX zoning assigned to properties located to the north and to the west, as well as the mixed-use development pattern of the surrounding area. What's proposed is the office residence, and it's envisioned in the MX zoning district and is compatible with the PAC land use. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, and thank you for the additional time.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? I think, Sarah, the heartburn we're having is not with what you want to do or with what you're anticipating there. It's who would come potentially after you. That's what we're always struggling with on these things, is what happens when you're not there, because I know what you're going to do is going to be nice and respectful of everybody. It's, once we change a zone, we can't change it back. So that's why we take this really seriously. That's what we're struggling with. And so normally, situations like that, we will do things like conditional use permits or things such as that to allow you to do that, but the zoning would revert back to the original state if in fact you guys left or something to that effect. So I don't know if that's an option, Eric, on something like this or not. Is it, because that, I mean, and I know Eric will remember this and T. Michael will remember this, but when Eric's gone and we're gone and he's gone and somebody comes in and says, well, why won't you let me have it because you let them have it? And it just kind of starts going down the list, going down the road, and that's what we struggle with, and that's what we're all kind of, we would like for you to be able to do what you want to do, but Eric, go ahead.
So I'm not sure that this would necessarily meet the requirements of, the uniqueness of a PUD. Typically, we don't do PUD zoning approvals for parcels that are, so small. I think that's kind of what you're referring to, is doing something special like a PUD. With respect to this particular parcel and its potential future redevelopment, it is a 0.21 acre parcel that's, I believe it was, you said 74 74 feet wide. The absolute maximum development potential of this parcel under the MX district is about 13,000 square feet if they were to tear down the home and build something else, like, 30 years from now after the person that wants to live there now with a small office on the bottom floor. I can tell you that single-family residential uses and redevelopment like this is exempt from providing stormwater requirements if it were to convert to a full office or a full retail use in the MX zoning district. They would have to provide stormwater, they would have to go through site plan approval and provide parking. There's no way they could get to the full 13,000 square foot on this parcel. If it were to redevelop in the future under the MX zoning, my best guess at this point would be a maximum of 7,000, 8,000 square foot maximum building that could go there.
That's a big building.
But keep in mind that they would be limited from the parking perspective. The bigger the building, the more parking they have to provide. And so from staff's opinion in the future land use, the primary activity, future land use, the MX is consistent with that, as the applicant has pointed out. The depth of the parcel lines up well with the rest of the MX district that's existing along that Avenue K corridor, and it is only one parcel in, so we don't anticipate any great impact as far as traffic is concerned. And it is a very natural border for the completion of that MX district in staff's opinion.
So Eric, there's no way to do it, just a CUP on this particular parcel? I'm not talking a PUD, I'm talking about a conditional use permit, so they can do what they want to do?
No, not under our existing code.
No, these were correct.
Pardon?
That's correct. That's not
Okay.
unavailable.
So I also have a question, Eric.
Okay.
So if this were to develop at a maximum of 7,000 square feet of office, isn't your office requirement for parking one space per 300 square feet?
Don't know off the top of my head, that sounds about right.
Right. So we could never accommodate parking that would be required if we were to raise the site and start over. And even if we went 2 stories, it's an existing 2-story home now. I do understand your concerns about in perpetuity, what is going to happen after. But I defer to staff's support. We brought it to their attention before we even filed for the rezoning, and they automatically said, this is it. It could never go further, but it is natural. It's natural because the land use that's already assigned is not residential, and just where it lines up with the depth of everything on Avenue K.
Okay.
So I'm just asking for you to take that into consideration.
Yeah, professional office is 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet.
3 spaces per
So-
1,000.
1 per 333.3 square feet.
What was the mood of the planning commission? What how'd they handle this?
As I recall, there was one that voted no, and the remainder voted yes. I believe it was I think there were 8 there that night, so it was 7-1. 7-1, I believe, was the vote in favor.
Okay. Tracy, you got some? No.
I just think once you turn down Fifth Street, you're on a residential street at that point. Avenue K is your commercial spaces, Sixth Street is your commercial spaces, and it's, clearly defined. We had I was not on the commission at that time, but a request just off of Sixth Street that was very similar to the same request.
Right.
And that request was also turned down due to the location of residential properties and where that one was going to go. And I think you've got to have lines, and I think in this case, the lines are Avenue K Southeast is a commercial corridor that abuts Avenue K for properties that abut Avenue K. But once you turn down the side streets, specifically Fifth Street Southeast, you're hitting residential area. And I have no doubt this gentleman will do a great property and run it, but you just, as the mayor said, you just don't know what's coming next. And I agree with you. I don't see a 7,000 square foot building here, but that doesn't change the fact that once it goes MX, it's MX at that point.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else from the audience want to speak? Okay, we have a motion to deny this request.
Mr. Mayor, just before you vote on this, I want to just sort of give a little primer.
Okay.
Ordinarily, you make a motion to approve.
Right.
And when you vote yes, that means you're supporting the action. So because the motion is in the negative, it's a motion to deny the recommended zoning change. If you vote yes on this motion, that means you support a denial. If you vote no on the motion, that means that you are in favor of not approving the denial, that you are in favor of approving. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood as a group the nuances there, because you don't normally vote on a negative motion.
And
That's
if we
all.
vote yes, we're going to deny this.
That's
And then we
correct.
would have to get another motion to, I mean, if we vote no, then we'd have to get another motion to vote yes.
Presumably, yes, that's
Presumably.
correct.
So,
If that were, yes, that's correct.
so we would, because we have a motion to deny, we would actually have to defeat that motion and take another motion to accept.
I think that what I'm trying to say is if this motion fails, then I would recommend that you then make a motion to approve.
Right. Need two motions. Okay. I think we're all clear. Okay, so pardon me, you can come forward. We're getting ready to vote. Just, if you can give us your name and address, please.
My name is David Sparling.
Yes.
I am the trustee for my brother, William Sparling.
Right.
My mother purchased the property in 1979, where she was under an irrevocable trust from her sister, who took care of her. When my mother passed in 2018, I became in charge of the house, which we gave to my brother and set the money aside for that, and now that is my job with him. We were envisioning him being able to retire. He's 62, he's worked physical labor his entire life, and this was a way to do it. Sarah's a family friend. I don't know if she said that or not, but we had great discussions on this. This was a way for him to stay in the house that he grew up in and have a way to retire. And that's what we brought it forward. I don't foresee us putting a 7,000 square foot building there. No. We've owned the home since Carter was in office. So that is, I just wanted to speak now because I know if I didn't, I wouldn't have a chance. But that is the direction that we wanted to take it.
All right.
He's my brother.
Yeah, appreciate that. We do, we appreciate it. Okay, we have a motion to deny this request. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose like sign.
Me, no.
All right, motion passes. All right, on to,
And just for the record, Mayor,
3-1.
so we're clear on this, I will prepare, as I normally do, when you make a motion to deny or not approve a development order, I'll come back at the next meeting with a letter that will articulate the basis for your denial. And my understanding on the record tonight is that you did not feel this was compatible with the adjoining zoning districts or consistent with the development pattern as the residential street. So similar to the actions that you've taken in the past, a letter will reflect that as the overall view.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask for your consideration to deny without prejudice.
John, you want to weigh in on that request?
Yeah, I'm not certain that may be a thing at the county, but I don't know if that's a thing here. Eric, do you have any input on that? I'm not.
I don't think that the form of the motion would preclude anything, a de novo appeal, for example, which is in our code.
Right, yeah. So I think there are code opportunities
Okay.
for further review, but I don't know that there's anything, just as I sit here tonight.
I just wanted to be on record in case there is something in the code
Sure.
that there's an automatic with prejudice once it's denied. So I was caught with that before, so I wanted to make sure to be on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, you all tell me what's your intent here. It was the motion without prejudice?
What does that mean?
Well, it means that they can come back if they want to with something that's different.
Well, of course they can. Everybody, that's the American way. You know, it's-
Well, not necessarily. Absolutely. And I'm not trying to be anecdotal. I'm just interested to know what,
In my intent of making the motion, it was without prejudice.
okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Eric,
you.
something totally unrelated, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but what's to stop him from selling insurance on the second floor anyway? If he lives downstairs?
It's not a home occupation because the person living there will not be running the office. It would be, so it doesn't qualify as a home occupation. If
We
the
would
person,
send code out and shut him down if he put up a shingle and he starts, I'm trying to figure out the
Yes.
logistics
it would be a code violation
for him to,
because you cannot run an office in the R2 district unless it is a home occupation.
Right.
okay. Just curious. I'm not advocating for that. Please don't say that. I'm just trying to understand, so I guess we'll move on. Let's move on to, where are we? 02348, this request by John Wood Associates to rezone 9 parcels from single-family residential to R2 zoning. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-48, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 9 parcels from single-family residential small lot R-2 zoning district to single-family residential large lot R-1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. General location, the Wood Point Phase 3 subdivision, generally located at the north end of Lake Hill Drive, approximately 240 feet north of Wood Point Drive. The area covered by this request is 3.95 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
City Manager, is anything changed on this, or is this
No
pretty?
changes, sir. Recommend City Commission approve ordinance O-2348 on second and final hearing.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments on 02348?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of vote 2348, second reading, public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve 02348 on second reading. I'll close city commission meeting and open public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign, motion passes. 02351, this is adopting an undated method for calculating an appropriate equivalent residential unit in ERU. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-51, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, relating to water and sewer utilities by adopting an updated method of calculating the appropriate equivalent residential unit for multifamily residential units and non-residential land uses for application in determining the amount of the city's water and sewer connection fees that are due, and revising the definition of multifamily residential set forth in section 19-138, small d, 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, making findings and repealing certain provisions of ordinances and/or resolutions that may be in conflict herewith, but only to the extent of any such conflict, providing for severability, codification, and the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, what's new on this one?
Mayor and Commissioners, nothing has changed since first reading. Staff recommends City Commission approve ordinance O-2351 on second and final hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve O-2351 on second reading. We don't have a motion. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
make a motion to approve ordinance O-23-51 on second reading.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve O-2351. I'll close city commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments on this motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, Commissioners, you have in front of you a consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of consent agenda in its entirety.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety. I'll close the city commission meeting and open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to any item on the consent agenda, please do so at this time.
Mr. Mayor, following public comment, if I could offer a word once you close public comment?
Okay. Anybody from the public like to speak to this? Seeing none, I will close public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. City Manager?
Yes, sir. I just want to point out item 12I. This is the collective bargaining agreement with the Police Benevolent Association, and that is what has been added to your agenda. We did not discuss that at commission meeting. It's very self-explanatory, but it is what is factored within our budget and accounted for going into fiscal year 2024. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding that. And the other item I just wanted to mention on was we have with us this evening for item 12D, representatives of Blue Line Aviation, Ashley Tucker and crew from Blue Line are here, so just want to acknowledge them.
Good deal. Is there anything else I might have passed over you want to talk about? I went kind of quick, so is there anything else on this consent agenda you'd like to bring to our attention?
I think the airport, the grant has been received. We appended that to the fact sheet this afternoon, and following your favorable consideration for that, that'll be signed and sent back. The South Apron Rehab Project, everything is ready to move forward there. Yeah, I think we're good on the other items, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. We've had public hearing. I'll close the public hearing. I've closed the public hearing and I've reopened the city commission meeting. Any questions or comments, commissioners, on any item on the consent agenda? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. On to resolution R2351. This is the FDOT beautification grant. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-53. Oh, pardon me. Ordinance number, what?
Resolution
Resolution, sorry, there's a lot of stuff here tonight. Resolution R-23-51, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept on behalf of the City of Winter Haven a beautification grant and enter into a beautification grant landscape construction and maintenance memorandum of agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation, providing for severability, the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, conflicts, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, we discussed this at the agenda review last week, and as I mentioned within our budget, this is to activate this DOT pond space at 4th and 5th Street where they intersect with Avenue C or comprised by Avenue C and US 17. What we're requesting through Resolution R2351 is an endorsement for the grant application and giving my office the authorization to apply for those funds. If we are awarded those funds to the tune of $200,000, part of that arrangement would require that the city take over the maintenance and landscape and any other improvements made to that pond, which we are fully aware of. Grant awards would be anticipated to be announced by early 2024. There are no matching funds required. However, we do include $200,000 within the CRA downtown fund for this. So that would put $400,000 towards really landscaping this and creating a nice environment there. So staff's recommending commission approve resolution R2351, authorizing my office to take any actions necessary related thereto. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve resolution R-23-51.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve R2351. I'll close the city commission meeting. No public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this resolution, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion passes. On the ordinance first reading, O2341, this is a request by R.R. Heath Investments, an LLC, to assign neighborhood support future land use to an annexed parcel. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been dying to read this one all night.
Who's tried to
Yeah,
4
this
times?
is the one I've tried to read 4 times, so.
All right. Let the big dog eat. Go ahead.
That's right.
Rennie-
Thank you,
Rennie
thank you,
is just
thank you.
blowing out there now.
All right, let me compose myself. Ordinance number O-23-41, an ordinance amending ordinance 23-25, the 2035 Winter Haven Comprehensive Plan, 2035 Future Land Use Map Series, by revising the Future Land Use Map Series by assigning neighborhood support future land use to one annexed parcel, repealing all ordinances in conflict with, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1100 Eloise Loop Road. The area covered by this request is 1.04 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor, Commissioners, the petitioner is requesting the city assign neighborhood support former commercial future land use and commercial highway C3 zoning district to this annexed parcel. It's located at 1100 Eloise Loop Road and totals 1.04 acres. It was annexed in May of this year. The petitioner proposes to develop the property with personal storage. Based upon the table within your chart, their supporting water, sewer, and transportation infrastructure contains sufficient capacity to support the request. However, that final determination will be made at the time property receives site plan approval and is developed. This is not in conflict with Chapter 2023-304. And staff's conclusion is that the assignment of the neighborhood support future land use in C3 zoning district is appropriate due to the subject property's location at that intersection of two collector roadways. There's sufficient public infrastructure capacity to accommodate the maximum theoretical development under C3. Planning Commission listened to this case on August 1st and voted to recommend approval. There were two members of the public that spoke with concerns related to flooding issues in the area, traffic, and access to the property. Staff is going to recommend that this move forward to second reading.
Okay. Commissioners, questions? Didn't we already take this up, John, on this, or T or something, or Eric on this piece of
We
property?
annexed it, like I said, back in May, and so that's probably why it may be fresh. We also had discussion at length during the workshop last week.
Well, we just, if you go down the road, we've approved, there's a lot of warehouses, so it's,
We had done something there at Pollard Road, Eloise Loop Road.
yeah. Commissioners, questions, comments? Okay, we will take this up in 2 weeks on, oh, wait, we need to, and this is, no, this is second, first reading. Yeah, we'll take this up on, September 12th. Okay, 02342, this request by R.R. Heath to assign commercial C3 zoning. City Attorney, title only, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-42, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by assigning commercial-highway C3 zoning district to an annexed parcel, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1100 Eloise Loop Road. The area covered by this request is 1.04 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is just the companion ordinance pertaining to zoning recommended advance to second hearing.
Okay. Commissioners, we'll take this up in 2 weeks. All right. R-2343, this request by Carlton Properties to rezone a parcel from single-family. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-43, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning a parcel from single-family residential small lot R2 zoning district to multifamily residential low-density R-3 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict with, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 3257 Old Eagle Lake Road. The area covered by this request is 21.68 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor, Commissioners, the petitioner is requesting the city rezone this parcel from single-family residential small lot R2 zoning to multifamily residential low-density R3 zoning. Contains approximately 21.68 acres and consists of pasture land and 2 residents. The current R2 zoning was assigned to the property in 2022 following its annexation into the city. The petitioner is seeking to develop approximately 187 townhouses on the property. However, based on the maximum density of 10 units per acre permitted under the R3 zoning, a maximum of up to 217 units could be potentially developed on the property, an increase of 109 units over the maximum number of units potentially developed under the current R2 zoning. The table in your chart, in your fact sheet, speaks to capacities within the infrastructure systems to support it, and also addresses the number of students that would likely come from the development of 217 units. It is not in conflict with Chapter 2023-304. Staff's conclusion was that the requested zoning will serve as a transition between single-family uses located to the north and west of the property, and the higher intensity uses located along US Highway 17 corridor, as well as the active railroad track located adjacent to Old Eagle Lake Road. The R3 zoning district is consistent with the intensity, the Garden Mobile Village manufactured home located northeast, which you can see on your map there. The requested R3 zoning is consistent with the neighborhood suburban future land use assigned to the property. And the request will result in a potential increase in utility demands in students attending public schools. This time, the petitioner's request will not result in supporting utility or roadway facilities falling below adopted levels of service. Planning Commission heard this at August 1st meeting. They voted to recommend approval. There were no public comments. Staff's recommending City Commission advance ordinance 023-43 to second reading. Thank you.
Questions, comments, commissioners? I'm going to bring up workforce housing again to just keep that out there. I'm sure the petitioner and the developer is aware that that's important to this body, and would like for them to continue to hear that maybe there's some incentives that we can offer for our workforce housing initiative. So maybe not, maybe there is. I don't know. I want to keep pushing that envelope if we can, so. All right. On to, any other questions or comments, commissioners? All right, on to 02343. This is a request by Telescope to assign neighborhood suburban future land use. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-44, an ordinance amending ordinance 23-25, the 2035 Winter Haven Comprehensive Plan, 2035 Future Land Use Map Series by revising the Future Land Use Map Series by assigning neighborhood suburban future land use to one annexed parcel, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, the parcel is generally located 600 plus or minus feet north of Thompson Nursery Road and 3,000 plus or minus feet west of US Highway 27. The area covered by this request is 2.58 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to ask Eric Labby to just give a very high-level, brief overview of what this project is.
Sure. So, Mayor, Commissioners, as you may recall, we annexed this piece of property into the city a couple of meetings ago. This is to assign the exact same future land use and exact same zoning, the next case, to assign the exact same PUD zoning as all of the adjacent property on this particular development parcel. The purpose for that is to allow for all services, including garbage pickup, to be within the city of Winter Haven. Originally, a portion was going to be in the county. We have discussed this with the county. They're in agreement with our annexation and the application of the appropriate land use and zoning to this particular property.
That's pretty high level.
So we're recommending this item advance to second reading.
Okay, we will take this up on 9:25. Commissioners, any questions on it? All right, we'll pick this up in 2 weeks. All right, 02345, request by Telescope to assign a PUD. City Attorney, title only, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-45, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, by assigning Plan Unit Development PUD zoning district to an annexed parcel, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, the parcel is generally located 600 plus or minus feet north of Thompson Nursery Road and 3,000 plus or minus feet west of US Highway 27. The area covered by this request is 2.58 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is the companion ordinance that applies to the zoning, so recommend this also advance to second reading.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take this up in 2 weeks. All right, any new business to bring before the good of the order? All right, City Commission liaison reports. Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, just a few things. Attended the Blue Line Aviation ribbon cutting. It's great to see that company moving to our airport. Attended the CDFI feasibility study that Heart for Winter Haven put forth. Attended the Florida League of Cities legislative session. Hopefully, our committee will adopt our One Water plan as it did last year. But as you all know, we're in the first stages. And the final item was honoring our heroes. I always like to take part in that event to remember 9/11. And it's always said that everybody basically can remember exactly what they were doing when they got the news, and I was just sitting reminiscing that I do remember. And I guess I watched a few of the programs honoring the heroes, and what we can never forget is that it was not only citizens, it was not only EMS, firemen, policemen. We also lost members of every branch of the service that day. And it was sort of, for me, to several of the ceremonies on C-SPAN actually recited the names of the individuals along with the ones that were in the service. So I'm just proud to know that our police department and our Manager Byrd and the rest of the people here in the city of Winter Haven and in Polk County, we will not forget. And so I really enjoyed the ceremonies. It was hot, but I still enjoyed it. That's it.
Commissioner Yates.
Thank you. Yes, I also attended honoring our heroes event in downtown Winter Haven. We'll take hot over approaching thunderstorm like we had the previous year for sure. You know, I remember where I was attending classes at what was then Polk Community College. And just remember it like it was yesterday. And it's an event that, you know, I truly hope my children never have to experience or witness or watch. But it's the days after the event that I hope my children get to see on a regular basis more and more. And that was America coming together, coming unified, red, white, and blue. It didn't matter if you were a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or whatever. It didn't matter. You were American. And the days that passed after 9/11, those are the days that I tend to focus on and hope that we can continue to move back to that direction once again. I also attended I do have to say though, T, you know, you and I were in the most dangerous place in the state of Florida at that event. All the cameras were out in the audience looking back. And then there was Grady Judd. And then there was me and T. Michael.
We were safe.
I don't know. He says the most dangerous place for him is between a camera. So I don't know. You sit on that side next time. I'm sitting over to the right. Nonetheless, I also attended the Florida League of Cities committee meeting for finance and taxation. As mentioned earlier today, the focus there is already on the transfer of funds within the municipality. So FLC is gearing up to continue to fight that. It's unfortunate that it's even needing to be fought, and it's being fought because of a municipality that does their own thing and their own ideas, and it's not the way the rest of the state works. So hopefully that'll continue to be a top focused effort, and that will be, those options will still be afforded to the individual cities. Attended the Planning Commission meeting and also attended the Blue Line ribbon cutting as well. And Tia, kudos on the consent agenda item for their lease. That's a fantastic deal for everyone involved. I think the city, the residents of the city, the airport people, the Blue Line itself, I think everybody wins with that transaction, and I think that they'll be great city partners for years to come because of that. So look forward to visiting their permanent structures once they get constructed. So
Thank you, Commissioner Yates. I appreciate the compliment, but I will say that a lot of that goes back to Alex Vaca and his efforts on the front end, and John Murphy and his team in negotiating that lease and jumping through those hoops along with our interim airport directors have done the bulk of that work. So appreciate the feedback.
I look forward to seeing Winter Haven Airport 20 years from now. The control tower will be out there and development's going to continue, so that's exciting to continue to see. The last thing I wanted to say, and it's unfortunate, once again, that, the gentleman left that made the comments earlier, but if I'm not mistaken, the Winter Haven Recreational and Cultural Center is the single largest item within the budget that we fully fund ourselves within the 2023-24 year of new development, of new structure coming out of the ground. And that's large in part because I think not much has happened in the northeast section of Winter Haven for many years. And that's a mistake, but that's a mistake that's being righted, I think, with the confidence and the building of that structure out there. And not to mention all the development that's happening in the northeast area of Winter Haven now, with the corner of Martin Luther King and 11th Street, and the 88 homes from Blue Sky, and the housing that's across the street from Blue Sky, and the commercial development that's coming online. He will start to see that CRA number tick up exponentially in the years to come, because that's what makes that CRA number grow. Eric, do you have any idea what the math would be 5 years from now, once all those things come to fruition? I mean, would it be safe to say it's a double the budget, CRA budget for Florence Villa CRA?
I can work on some numbers for you and some projections.
curious
I would
to
hate to
know.
guess off the top of my head, but I will say that the Florence Villa District, on a percentage basis, gained more value this previous fiscal year than the downtown district did.
Yeah.
You know, I wish he was here because it's apparent that he did not understand.
Yeah. I will see him.
The CRA
Yes, sir.
process, and I mean,
I'm going to see him at breakfast Thursday morning at Mr. Dudney's. He's normally there.
But would
So
you
I'm
really
going to let
give
him
him-
know and
let him know.
reiterate, because
Apparent
that's
that
a
he doesn't
focus
know.
up here, is it's not about Northeast Winter Haven or Southeast Winter Haven. It's about Winter Haven as a whole. And that's the continued focus that I think this commission continues to put forth throughout this entire community. It's not one section over a other. It's growth in the right direction.
But he needs to know what the CRA and that whole process. And
Absolutely.
what generates that. And there's nobody on this commission, not one member, that was here when the CRAs were created. Not one. I'm the oldest one on this commission, and I was not on the commission when the CRA was implemented. So, I mean, it's
Tracy, you're up.
Okay. I attended the Honoring Our Heroes also, and I think you guys have said all of that, and we certainly are proud of our heroes and even our employees and the veterans. I did attend the Seven Rivers Water Conservation Display. It was very, very hot, so I kind of left early. And I attended my legislative policy committee. I'm on the transportation, affordable housing, the trains. Mine's like a catch-all, and so what time I was there, I got to hear a lot about the building inspections, because there's a lot of House bills coming through on that, and there's like over 2,000 rules on building inspections, and the volumes of books are gotten bigger and bigger and huge, and I think there's like 26 volumes or something now on inspections. But the one thing that really took me by surprise is the urban air mobility and regional air mobility. And basically, it's a small airplane between a helicopter and a drone. That's what they're going to look like. There's 6 companies, and you can go from one person to 1 to 4, 1 to 6,
people in it. The services are going to be, some of them are going to be on demand. The service offerings will be on demand, it'd be scheduled. And then it says who will operate, that would FFA would be the ones, FAA, sorry, would be the ones that would do that. Ownership, you could have charter planes, you could pilot them yourself, and you could own and operate one. I don't think there'd be too many owners right away, but because it costs about the $10 million for one. But they're starting out in 2025 to 2027. They're locating ports that they can do that. Now, they would be the top of roofs, like the helicopters land, those pads. They will be on that order. And 28 to 30, they're going to have air taxis in large cities. And in 2030, they'll do initial autonomy-type flights. And a lot of them would be used for medical. Now, it's not the package ones, and they would be following the roads over the highways and interstates. These will fly 3,000 to 4,000 feet high. And so they are looking for ports, and they're going to start looking, for places and cities. The smaller cities, they would still look for those. They would want them to have some amenities, such as if you come to Winter Haven, you would have a car or something ready if you wanted to tour Winter Haven or something like that. And charges, they want to have some place to charge them. So they're looking for places to charge them. So they call it a vertiport, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of new terminology I wasn't familiar with. So this is like, and they're looking for small asphalt places for charging. And so anyway, that was very, very interesting just to, hear about it. I never thought we were that close to that. So I just never thought, in 5 years they're going to start some of this. I just never thought we were that close. But that was my exciting day in Orlando.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Briefly, we had a TDC Arts Council meeting. Enough without that. Heroes Walk, Grady Judd is a rock star. Everybody in the world in that whole place wanted to have their picture with him. And I am hoping that T. Michael and I were standing behind him photobombing. And I was starting thinking, I hope that doesn't make it to some publication. Or the city manager and the mayor of Winter Haven are photobombing the mayor. I mean, the sheriff of Polk County. But anyway, hopefully that won't happen. Also was at the Blue Line Aviation, and they also, Blue Line has brought in a barbecue place, and I don't really even know where it is. They said it's that blue building as you go into Lakeland, but it's pretty good barbecue. So they brought in a flight school as well as a barbecue store. Two things I want to talk about. First, Blue Line, we're all thrilled to have them in there, and but we have to be aware that the traffic out there is going to be tremendously higher than what we're used to. And I'm preaching to the choir when I'm saying that, but with opportunity also is going to come some responsibility. And we as a commission are going to have to pay attention to what's going on out there, because we have increased by what we did tonight and by this lease that we've signed, which we're all excited to have Blue Line out there. We've increased traffic out there quite a bit. And with more traffic, more airline traffic, particularly without a tower, there's potential for more accidents. So we just have to be ever vigilant to make sure that we're doing everything possible we can do that doesn't happen, because I have heard from a couple of people that have planes out there, and I realize people are used to having things the way they've always had it, and now things are changing. But there are some concerns out there that this increased traffic, particularly with student pilots landing where they want to land. I don't know how we fix it, but we do need to be ever vigilant that we keep our eye on what's going on out there as far as safety concerns. And then the last thing, John, I'm going to ask you again, and maybe Eric, if you guys can put your heads together to come up with some way to maybe potentially change an ordinance, or not an ordinance, a code or something where we could potentially come up with ways to incentivize these developers to use some portion, some percentage of their developments, like we are going to probably approve in 2 weeks. If we could get 10% of those townhouses to be used for workforce housing, particularly our workforce here in Winter Haven, in the city of Winter Haven, our employees. I don't have any interest in incentivizing a developer to put workforce housing and having Lakeland police officers come over here and take these units. I want it to be the Winter Haven police officers and the Winter Haven folks. I don't know how we do that legally, but that's on my brain, that's on my radar now, and I'm gonna keep asking you guys about it, let's come up with a way to maybe use some of this trust fund money that we fund, or LHAP, or whatever these acronyms we have to kind of keep up with. Let's try to incentivize some of these developers to come up with a way to help our people that work here. And I'm saying the police officers, but I'm talking about firemen, I'm talking about our guys that work in the sewer department, talking about our parks and recreation people. Let's figure out a way to help our people be able to live in Winter Haven that work here. So I know it's a tall order, and I know it's not going to be easy, but I think we have to keep talking about it and keep trying to figure out a way to do it. And so that's what I want to keep doing. So, all right, that's it for me. City Attorney, you got anything?
No, not tonight, Mayor. Thank you. I hear you, and I'll certainly work with City Manager and Eric and others to evaluate that and
See if we can come up with something.
see what the landscape can look like.
Good. City Manager.
Mayor Commissioners, start off by wishing a happy birthday to our Assistant to the City Manager, Amanda Joe. She turned 32 today. But do want to wish her a very happy birthday, however they do that in England. I'm not real sure what the proper protocol is. You guys all mentioned this amazing event last night. I actually have a recording that someone sent to me of Sheriff Judd when he recognized that Winter Haven had the best city manager in the world.
Forgot that.
I mean, I can play it for you if you like, but it's on my phone, saying it, so I just,
I'm sure Katrina has already put it on Facebook.
I haven't sent it to her yet, but it's in my back pocket. No, seriously, though, aside from that great event last night, and thank you to Jamie Brown and the Clark family for all that they do to make that event happen every year. That is a labor of love and something that takes a whole lot of effort to make happen. And then finally, again, I just want to, for myself, thank my staff for their work on this budget. This is not one person. This is pretty much every person in this organization has some level of input into this budget, and it just gets a little deeper and deeper as we get to the top. So thank you for your support, and look forward to our second reading on both those ordinances. Thank you.
Oh, and before I forget, 2 weeks from today is the last day of summer, so everybody wear their summer outfit. 2 weeks from today is the last day of summer. You know what that means?
That means the seersucker suit is
I'm
coming out.
not saying it's always a surprise, but the last day of summer is in 2 weeks. MJ, you got anything?
All right, good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. I know it's been a long evening, but I didn't want to miss an opportunity to recognize an important member of our team. Devin Moore, the city's senior environmental scientist. I'd like to ask him to come up here. So Devin Moore was supposed to travel to the Florida Lake Management Society conference last month, but decided to stay back and help man sandbag stations in preparation for the hurricane. At that conference, Devin was to have been awarded the Marissa L. Williams Young Professional Award. This award is presented to a lake management professional who exhibits exemplary accomplishments, as well as a commitment to water resource protection and management of our lakes and watersheds. I'm fortunate to have known past recipients of this award, and it holds a lot of prestige within FLIMS. And I'm fortunate to have worked very closely with Devin over the years, and I know that he lives up to the prestige this award holds. Devon's a powerhouse behind the city's annual Lakes Report. That is a document that stands, I think I've mentioned this before, just head and shoulders above what a lot of other communities have. And I think as the Chain of Lake City, it's very important that we take that resource seriously and we do everything we can to manage it appropriately. And Devon's work behind not just putting together the report, but the weekly monitoring and collection of data and analysis of data to understand what's happening there and work towards developing management strategies is critical to all of that coming together. Devon's just made major impacts in his time here in the community, and we're very fortunate that he shares his knowledge with his hometown, and I just didn't want to let this opportunity to recognize him go to waste. So if we can get a round of applause for Devon, I'd appreciate it.
I know it's late, I'm going to keep this brief. You know, this award was certainly a surprise, but a welcome one, and I definitely appreciate the accolade. I did want to point out that, you know, success doesn't happen in a vacuum, and I got a great team with me to help, you know, help me get this award. So beyond that, the other thing I wanted to bring up, Commissioner Mercer mentioned the Seven Rivers Water Festival over this weekend. I did want to proudly mention that we were able to bring back the cardboard boat race. And,
Did we do it? Did we win?
congratulations to
Apparently
Winter
David
Clean Water
Nicholson.
and PD for winning 2 of the trophies during that. So,
Who was in the boat? That's what I want to know.
I believe,
Todd Gooding and David Nicholson.
And it floated?
it-
my gosh.
It barely made it back to shore. Just saying.
I'm not sure if they sabotaged the other competitors or what, but
Brad, you remember your
Yes, and it didn't
cardboard
float.
race with your son? You and your son in the boat and it sank?
It did not float. And Devin, I'm sorry you had to sit through 2.5 hours of us to get to your award. Next time, whisper to me and I'll put you at the front. But, you know, you did get a good civics lesson tonight, so. Okay, anything else? Okay, City Clerk, you got anything?
Yes, just a reminder that candidate qualifying for city commission seats 1, 2, 3, and 5 begins on Monday, September 18th at noon, and ends Friday, September 22nd at noon. This information is posted in various city buildings. It's on the website. The election will be Tuesday, November 7th, and we have all 6 polling locations secure, and it's the same polling locations we've had since 2019.
And it doesn't matter, no runoffs, it's whoever gets the most votes.
No.
Oh, no, we still have runoffs.
You said November 7th, so that would be the runoff? That would be
No,
the-
that's the actual
Primary.
election, November
Well,
7th.
when will the runoff be then, if there's?
If there's one, it would be December 5th.
December 5th, okay. Got it.
And happy birthday to AJ, and early birthday to John. His birthday is Thursday.
Wow, thank you.
he's also turning 32.
Right. Mayor, you and I are together on that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, John, you're half the man you were. You could have floated in that boat now that you've lost weight, so.
I appreciate that. Maybe I'll try it.
Okay,
But first,
emergency,
I wanna do that affordable housing thing.
yes, thank you.
Let me do that first.
Just do that first. All right, emergency matters not received from the agenda. Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.